So good afternoon everyone. So welcome to the second session of the QEEE lecture on total station surveying. So today I am going to discuss about some overview of total station surveying, some basic principles involved, how the distance is calculated in total station surveying, and what are the functions of the total station surveying and what you can do with the total station surveying. So I'll start with what is total station. Total station is a surveying equipment with a combination of electromagnetic distance measurement instrument and an electronic theodolite. It is integrated with an microprocessor, electronic data collector and storage system. So the total station means it will provide total solutions to all your surveying needs. So normally in surveying we require a theodolite for measuring the angles, both vertical angles as well as the horizontal angles. And normally you may require another instruments like chains, tapes or a tachyometer to measure the distances between the two objects. Yeah, so in any surveying work you will be requiring to measure the angles as well as the distance, either it is a slope distance or the horizontal distance. So for that what we will be using, so we will be using theodolites or leveling instruments or the tachyometers or chains, tapes, this kind of instruments. So all these functionalities has been incorporated in a single instrument, that is called total station. So that is why it is mentioned that electromagnetic distance measurement as well as electronic. It's all electronic now. There is no manual measurements. All instruments are there, all functionalities are there, but in an electronic manner, because it is integrated with microprocessor, electronic data collector system and as well as a storage. Because all your data will be digital data, it will have a storage system to store all the data. So the instrument can be used to measure the horizontal and vertical angles as well as the slope distance of an object or to the instrument. Based on these three, horizontal and vertical angles and slope distance, we can calculate the horizontal distance between the two objects. So in any surveying work, we are interested in measuring the horizontal distances. So that can be deduced from slope distances. So these are some of the parts of the total station, typical total station. So the top one is so this one is your handle, and you have a telescopic ring and it has eyepiece and objective, and you will be having the display board. This is the display board where you will be feeding all your inputs, and the outputs can be seen and different modes of total station can be enabled, everything through the this one digital board, and you have a plate level to ensure the instrument is in a very leveled position. And here you will be having the tri-backs. The tri-backs are the leveling, the adjustment screws to ensure that the instrument is then positioned in the leveled. And here you can see this is the objective to focus the object. So this is like looks like an electronic theodolite, but it also has the electronic distance measurement unit within it. So next we will go to the methods of measuring distance. So normally we can have three different categories of measuring distance. One is direct distance measurement, that is chaining and taping. Directly you will be measuring the distance between the two objects using a chain or the tapes. Second one is optical distance measurements. The students who have already undergone the engineering surveying course, they know what is meant by tachyometer. So tachyometer can be used to find the distance between two objects or two locations using the principles of optics. So there is no direct measurement is involved. You have indirect measurements. So you will be measuring the angles and the height of the particular location, and based on that you will deduce the distance, horizontal distance between the two locations. The third category is electromagnetic distance measurement. So for example, the gyrometer, tellurimeter and distometer. These are some of the instruments which uses the electromagnetic waves for distance calculations. So we will discuss one by one. Theodolite has this provision, electromagnetic distance measurement. Electromagnetic distance measurements called EDM. EDM is a general term for embracing the measurements of distance using electronic methods. So the distances measured here are with the instrument that rely on the propagation of the electromagnetic waves, reflection of the electromagnetic waves, and the subsequent reception of the reflected waves, either in the form of radio waves or visible light or infrared waves. So electromagnetic waves you might have studied in your 11th or 12th physics. It ranges from X-rays to radio waves. So it has both properties of electrical signals as well as the magnetic properties. So for EDM, there are three different electromagnetic waves can be used. One is radio waves and visible light or infrared waves. So common types, the biodimeter, it uses the modulated light waves. Light waves means visible lights. And tellurimeter, they uses radio waves to interact between your instrument station and the target station. And distometers, they use modulated infrared waves. Normally, all the total or most of the total stations the currently existing in the market, they use the modulated infrared waves. So they employ distometers to measure the distance between the two stations. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages. Radio waves generally prohibited in most of the countries because it will interact with the radio signals or the military signals, this one. So generally, and visible lights will have some effects due to the atmospheric noises. So comparatively, the infrared waves is better than the other two waves. So now let us discuss about the working principles of typical total stations. So here you can see here there are two stations. So one is the instrument station, this is the instrument station, and this is your target station. So normally you want to find the distance between these two stations, instrument station and this one. So it involves setting up of the instrument, centering the instrument and leveling the instrument, and then carrying out all the measurements. First one, once you have set up all these things, once you trigger the button at the instrument station, it involves sending a signal from one transmitter at the instrument station to a reflector at the remote station. Here you will be having a reflector and receiving it back at the instrument station. The signal will be traveling from your instrument station to your remote station, and then based on the reflection here, again it will come back to the instrument station. The instrument measures the slope distance between the transmitter and the receiver. Generally in total stations, both transmitter and receiver is same. So this is the transmitter and it will transmit the signals to the target and it will receive the signals back in the unit. So the instrument itself acts as a transmitter as well as the receiver. This one here, the target, generally it will be a reflector. So prism will be there, so which will act as a mirror and it will reflect the signal back to the instrument. So this is where kept at the target. So moreover, the instrument contains sensors which can sense the rotation of the spindles and the telescopes. So these rotations of the spindles and telescopes are then converted into horizontal and vertical angles and displayed in digitally. This forms the electronic theodolite unit. Finally, by measuring the displayed slope distance, horizontal and vertical angles, you can calculate the horizontal distance between the 2 points, and as well as you also can calculate the coordinate of the unknown point. This is the simple working principle of a total station. As I told that in working principle, it involves the distance measurement. So we will see what are the different methods of range estimation. Range estimation or the distance measurement is same. So there are generally two types of methods are available to find the distance between two targets using the electromagnetic principles. One is time of flight method and second one is the phase difference method. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages. Time required for making the measurements and the distance between the object, maximum distance between the objects, everything will be controlled based on these measurements. We will see one by one. The time of flight method and the phase difference method. Time of flight method is also called as pulse method. So here it involves the accurate measurement of the time of flight of a very short but intense pulse of the laser. Laser radiation to travel from the laser range to the object being measured and to return to the instrument station after being reflected from the object. It is the pulse echo. So if you see in this diagram, so you can see here this is your instrument and this is your ground object. You want to find the distance between these two locations. So this is the total station. It will send, if it is a time of flight total station means it will send a pulse, discontinuous pulse with intense energy. It will send one pulse and then it will reflect at the ground and then it will come back to the instrument. So R is the distance between the instrument station and your ground object. So R is equal to C into T by 2. C is the velocity of the electromagnetic wave. So electromagnetic wave generally moves at the speed of velocity of light. So we know the velocity of light. C is already known. And T is the time taken between your instrument station and the ground station and come back to the instrument station. So that is a two-way travel time. So that is why we are dividing by 2. So R is equal to C into T by 2. So you will get the distance between the laser and the your instrument station and the target station. Normally the time of flight based total stations will can be used for measuring long range distances, maybe beyond 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers. Time of flight method can be utilized. The next one is phase difference method. Phase difference method. Here also you can see here an electro-optical EDM, that is an EDM device. An EDM device is set up on one station which emits a continuous wave carrier beam of light. So this continuous wave is generated in the transmitter. Within the instrument itself, this continuous wave is getting transmitted and it is modulated by an electronic shutter. Before entering into the aiming optics, before entering into the telescope, it generates the continuous wave is being generated. There will be a modulator. The modulator chops the beam. It will be dividing the beam into wavelengths that are proportional to the modulating frequencies. Each instrument has its own frequencies. So based upon the modulating frequencies, continuous wave beam will be chopped into wavelengths. Where you know the formula between the wavelength, the velocity and the frequency. So lambda is equal to V by F. Wavelength is indirectly proportional to the frequency. So the modulated light is then transmitted to the reflector. So once it is coming into the aiming optics, then it will be transmitted to the reflector placed at the other end of the line. That means the placed at your target location. The reflector acting as a mirror. The reflector which is kept at your other end will act as a mirror, then reflects back the light beam to the receiver, where the incoming light is converted into an electrical signal. Here the phase comparison between the transmitted signal and the received signal will be used to calculate the distance. There, time of flight of each pulse. So there discrete pulse will be generated in time of flight method. Then you will be calculating the time, two-way time travel for that pulse to reach the sensor after the reflection. And here, since it is a continuous wave beam, so we will be measuring the phase difference between the received transmitted signal and the received signal. So in the phase difference method, here the total stations can be operated within 3 kilometers or 2 kilometers. It is mainly, it will have a short range compared to the time of flight method. Generally, most of the total stations which are currently available in market nowadays, they are using the time of flight method to measure the distance between your instrument station and your target. I hope now so far you have understand the principles involved in measurements of the distance using the optics. So it uses simple the Doppler velocity principle. Next we will discuss about the functions of a total station. The functions of the total station. So here it can measure the slope distance between the instrument station and the target station. Second one is it also measures the horizontal angle and vertical angle. Normally here the vertical angles scale is 0 at the top of the instrument. For example, the vertical angle 0 is here at the top. Normally from there only the vertical angles are calculated in the total stations. Horizontal angles scale 0 can be set anywhere. So you can set in any direction as the horizontal angle 0, they depend upon the field conditions. Then it calculates the horizontal distance and vertical distance, and also it calculates the azimuth of lines, then x, y, z coordinates of a point. So here you have to note down, as I told that the functions, it can measure and it can calculate. There are two things involved in this. So two components. One is measurement. The total station measures only the slope distance. and measures the horizontal angle and vertical angle. But the horizontal distance and the vertical distances are calculated one. So there is a huge difference between measurement and calculation. Measurement and that means the observations and the calculations. So the measurements here, it measures only the slope distance. Based on the measurements of the slope distance, horizontal angle and vertical angle, so using the trigonometric principles, we can deduce the horizontal distance and the vertical distance. And also you can calculate the azimuth of line. Azimuth of a line means the angle from the true north. Angle from the true north is called as the azimuth of the line. And XYZ coordinates of a point, because a total station can also be used as a leveling instrument. It will provide you all kind of solutions required for the surveying. Angle measurements, linear measurements, that is distance measurements, both horizontal as well as vertical. Next one is the continuation of the functions of the total stations. Also is coordinate determination. The total station determines the coordinates of an unknown points relative to the known coordinate, establishing a direct line of sight between the 2 points. As I told in the previous lecture 4 days before on plane table surveying, I have told about the resection method. The same resection principles can be used in total station to find the coordinates of the total station where it is occupied. Suppose if we have 3 points, known points, already you have known its locations based on the GPS survey or something, or based on your previous surveys. Now we have kept a total station at the particular point, unknown point. Now you want to note down the coordinates of this particular point with respect to the previous other known stations. So you can use the method of resection, and you can get the coordinates of this unknown point using the for method of resection. You can use 3-point problem. As we discussed the 3-point problem last class, you can use the same principle and you can get the coordinates of the unknown point where your total station is occupied. So this is the reason I have taught about the principles of plane table surveying. The next another important function of a total station is data processing. The instrument records the data which can be downloaded into a computer, and it can be easily transferred to various CAD packages, and then you can do lot of calculations, cut and fill, volume of a particular survey area, many things can be easily done using the total station data, because the data is of digital data, so it is easy to do the calculations. Yeah, so coming to the standard computations which can be performed by a total station. So you can do averaging of the multiple angle measurements. Suppose if you are making angles of a particular point 10 times, then you can also get the average multiple angles measurements also. Then average multiple distance. So when you are getting average multiple angles means average multiple distance between your instrument station and your target times means you can get the most probable value. So normally the students are going to study surveying, engineering surveying 2. So there is a topic called theory of errors and least square problems. There you will be studying about finding the most probable values. Most probable values means, suppose you are measuring the distance between point A and point B. You are measuring it 10 times. All the 10 times you will not get the exact same value. Suppose if the distance is measured is 10 meters means next time when you are measuring it may be 10.01, and another time it may be 9.99, another time it is 10, another time it may be 10.02. So there you will be getting 10 different values even you are measuring it 10 different times. So what happens when you are averaging it, the average value represents the most probable value of that measurements. So this is very much required when you are going for a very accurate surveying. So in generally most probable value of measurements is the average of those measurements gives the most probable value. So for that these functions will be useful. Averages the multiple angle measurements. Similarly averages the distance measurements. Then as I told that you can compute horizontal and vertical distance, and also you can apply the corrections for temperature, pressure and the humidity other than the standard manufacturing specifications. Then sometimes if you want very high accurate and precise measurements, what happens, you need to apply the corrections pressure and humidity also. The reason is the total station might have manufactured for a specific standard conditions, but if your survey location is at very extreme conditions, very hot or very cold conditions, there will be definitely the temperature, pressure and humidity changes will be there. Those also will affect your measurement accuracy. And to account for that, if you have the field measurements of the temperature, pressure and humidity, that can be incorporated in your measurements. But it is very needed. It is needed for very accurate surveys of geodetic grade. Next one, it computes the x, y and z coordinates. It also computes the area of a closed traverse. So there are different modes available. You can do traversing by total station. Simply if you switch on the traverse mode, you can keep on taking the backside, foresight and whatever other measurements, and then if you come back to the last session, if you say that it is a closed traverse, it will come back and check, it will give you the closed traverse area, and you can calculate the area of such traverse very easily. Then compute the surface profiles of a road surface and then compute the cut and fill volumes. You don't need to do any calculations. Depend upon the measurement, automatically the total station will give you the cut and fill volumes with the help of a post-processing software. So these are some of the functions. So here I am going to tell about the temporary adjustments of total stations before taking any measurements. As you are familiar with the other instruments, the total station also requires centering, leveling and focusing of the target. So these are the temporary adjustment one has to do before taking any measurements. So here the centering can be done by two different approaches. One is using plumb bob and another one is using optical plummet. So plumb bob is very common. So till your leveling or theodolite, we will be using the plumb bob. The direction of the plumb bob, the pointed edge of the plumb bob indicates wherever the peg indicates, that is the station point. So it is very straightforward. And that sometimes what happens, due to wind and all this thing, the plumb bob may be getting oscillated frequently. In that case, we can use another technology called optical plummet. So normally most of the total station comes with optical plummet. So in this method, the center of the instrument is brought to the center of the peg by seeing through a centering vane. There will be a small vane will be there here, somewhere here. So through that, if you see, there will be a laser pulse will be generated. It may be red color or green color. So then you can center the instrument by making sure that the laser pulse falls exactly on the peg where you kept the instrument. So wherever the laser pulse falls on the ground, that indicates the center of the exactly center of the below of the bottom of the instrument. So using that optical plummet, one can center the instrument. This is very simple and effective way of centering. Next comes the leveling. As I told that centering, leveling and focusing, these are the temporary adjustments. So leveling. So here leveling is again is a very simple. So unlike your plane table tripods, and here you will be having tri-backs. So that means 3 leveling screws will be there. So using that screws, we can easily adjust this. So I think people who are already undergoing surveying course, they know how to adjust total stations. Normally what happens, there are 3 screws are there. You have to make sure the telescope is parallel to any of the 2 screws, and you can rotate the 2 screws either clockwise or anti-clockwise and make sure that the level is center, and then turn the telescope 90 degrees from the original position and then adjust the 3rd screw either internally or either clockwise or anti-clockwise, and make sure that now the level is centered. And now after once it is level, if you rotate the leveling instrument, the telescope, it should be level in any directions. Then it indicates that the instrument is level. This is the leveling is like common for all kind of surveying instruments. Once that is done, then you have to focus the target. So for focusing, you will be using the eyepiece. So focusing the eyepiece is the operation to bringing the cross cast to focus. The focusing position varies with the eyesight of the observer. So what happened, there will be eyepiece adjustments. This has to be adjusted as per the observer's eye power also. Once this is done, then we are ready to start measuring the parameters to calculate the distances. So these are the three temporary adjustments in a total station. Now let's see what are the factors influencing the use of the total stations. Any instrument has some drawbacks. Any instrument, all instruments cannot work in all kind of weather conditions also, for all situations. So there are some limiting factors which affects the use of total station. One is a clear line of sight between the instrument and the points to be measured is essential. So if you want to measure the distance between 2 points A and B, there should be a proper line of sight should be there. Otherwise, you cannot measure the distance between these 2 points using a total station. Next one, the precision of the instrument depend upon the repeatability of the direction and the distance measurement. As I told that, so standard measurements of the total station, you can do the averaging of the angular measurements, averaging of the distance measurements. So the instrument should have more repeatability. So the precision of the instrument is dependent upon the repeatability of the directions and the distance measurements. Then next one is a well-defined measurement point or target or prism is required to obtain the optimal precision and accuracy. So your target should be well defined. You should be able to sight the object or the target very precisely, otherwise your accuracy also will get affected. Then another one, though your instruments are good and your targets are very good, all these things. So the another important factor is the accuracy of the direction, the distance measurements is subject to the number of instrumental errors. There may be some internal errors in the leveling component, or internal error in the electronic theodolite, or internal error in the chip. Everything it can be possible. And another important thing is that everything will be perfect. Even there is, let us assume that there is no errors in your instrument, but correct field procedures also ensures the accuracy. So total station is a tool. Now how you are handling it, it's also depend upon the person and how he or she is handling the instrument also affects the accuracy. So the instrumental errors and the correct field procedure also will have effect of the accuracy of the total stations. So the best accuracy. So the accuracy of the total station depends upon the careful centering and leveling. So then accurate pointing of the targets, average of the multiple points. Triebacks must provide a snug fit without slippage. The triebacks, which are the leveling screws, no, it should be also be very rugged. And verticality of the prism pole. This comes under the, what you can say, the correct field procedures. Your prism pole or your target may be very good, but the problem is if you are not holding it vertical, that also will induce some errors. The prism should be checked frequently to determine their constants. Then generally the angular accuracy of the total stations are from 1 to 20 seconds. There are different varieties of total stations which offer from 1 second accuracy to 20 second accuracy. The linear accuracy varies from 2 mm to 10 mm per kilometer. If you are measuring per kilometer, some total stations will give you 10 mm accuracy, or some total station can give you 2 mm accuracy. It's all depend upon the other corrections also, how you can the correct field procedures. So different instruments generally will have different accuracies, and again depend upon the accuracy of the instruments, the cost also will vary. Okay. Now let us see what are the auxiliary instruments or equipments required to do a total station survey. So one is a target or a prism to accurately define the target point. This target, the prism mounted target, will act as a mirror and then it will guide the signals back to the transmitter. So that is needed. Sometimes you can use the surface of the object as a target. Provided the surface should be reflective surface. Sometimes what happens, you may not able to keep your prism on the target. In that case, your target itself can be used as a the object itself can be used as a target. And then you should have the download cable and softwares to collect the data as well as the post processing of the collected data. So advantages of the total stations. First one is it is more accurate and user friendly, gives position of a point X, Y and Z with respect to the known point. Then digital display, onboard memory to store data and compatibility with computers. So onboard memory nowadays you have 10 GB, 20 GB storage capacity. So you don't need to worry about the loss of the data collected. And measures distance and angles and display coordinates An auto level compensator is available. Generally, since it is all very high-end instruments, even if your instrument is not adjusted to a proper level, then if the not proper level means it's minor adjustments of the leveling errors, inequalities can be compensated using an auto level, and then it can measure the distance even without the prismatic target. Even if you don't have the prism pole, the surface itself can act as your target. In that case, the distance measurement range will be reduced. Then in generally it can be a waterproof or water resistant, and onboard software are available. Total stations for all surveying work, everything is possible, and it is easy to carry also. Now applications of total stations we will see. Generally I categorize this into civil engineering and for other fields. In other fields mainly used by the land surveyors, also it can be used by the archaeologists for to record the excavations. And moreover, the total stations are being used by the police to analyze the crime scenes, and private accident reconstructionists and insurance companies to make measurements of the scenes. As well as it is also used in erecting the sets in the during the filming of a cinema. Normally, if we want to erect a particular set, then we want the measurements. For that also total stations can be used. And in civil engineering, it is used for distance measurements and to provide the control surveys, control stations, and contour and detail mapping, and dam deformation studies. Not only dam deformation, any deformation studies also can be made using the total stations. And then for general construction works also, at the preliminary surveying stages, the total stations are being used. Next is the robotic total station. So normally, so far till now I have discussed about the total station, which involves two equipments. One is your total station itself fitted with the tripod, and second one is the prism target. And what happens? One person should hold the target, and another person should be in the instrument station. And that person, the person who is at the instrument station, should target to focus your target and press the button and operate, calculate the distance and everything. And in a robotic total station, there is no need of operator on the station. There can be an radio telemetric connection between your instrument and the target, the prism target. So ideally only one person is sufficient to carry out the entire surveys. It moves automatically to the predetermined direction and focuses automatically at the target at a specified distance. For example, this is your total station main instrument and this is your prism target. Let us say if it is a radiometric total station. So this will be at automatically based upon the location of your prism target. The robotic total station will rotate and orientate such that it exactly bisects the target. The person, only one person is required, and that person is sufficient to stand near the target, and from there he will control the movement of the total stations, where how long it should be keep on searching for the targets and which direction it should move horizontally. Everything can be controlled from the person who is at the target. So only thing requirement is the person should stand near the target, and from there he can operate. That is how the robotic total station works. So it reduces the manpower cost drastically. Only problem with the robotic total station, especially in the countries like India and other developing countries, is the safety issue. So for example, the distance between your total station, robotic total station instrument and your prism target, let us say if it is 1 kilometer. So, and if the instrument attended by any particular person, automatically there is a high chances of getting stolen by by other persons. So here the safety is a big concern for using the robotic total station. Otherwise, it reduces the time drastically compared to the normal total station. If you see here in this figure, controller is attached to the prism target. So from the person who is holding the prism target can operate the total station using this controller. Next comes, so far we have seen advantages and what it can do, all these things, some positive sides of a total station. Next we will see some limitations. See, the total station is not a rugged instrument, it is sensitive because it is a very electronic instrument, it is very delicate. So you cannot handle it like a plain table or handle it like a theodolite. So it has to be very carefully maintained. And prism verticality is the questionable. So the verticality, it has to be calibrated frequently, and there should be a visibility between the two stations because it uses electromagnetic signals. The electromagnetic signals is generally visible, and the infrared signals will be affected by clouds at different magnitude. So if it is if you want to measure the distance between 2 points separated by, let us say, 4 kilometers during the winter time or foggy time, then you cannot use the total station because the fog will obstruct the movement of the electromagnetic rays between the two stations. So it should be, visibility is must, and comparatively very high expensive compared to your vernier theodolite and the level. And height of the instrument and prism is to be fed. So we need to fed manually the height of the instrument and the prism, but that is not a big problem. And it requires frequent calibration because it involves so many delicate components, so that requires frequent calibration. That all increase the cost sometimes. So now we will be discussing about some examples of total station surveying. So what you can do with the total station. So what kind of measurements you can do with the total stations. Yeah. So using total station, we can perform remote elevation measurements. So there are options available in the total station because as I told that it has some data processing units also and some sensors which will help us to do some calculations on site itself. The process of finding the height of the objects without actually going to the top of the object is known as remote elevation measurements. For example, you have a particular building, and if you are not able to have the access to the base of the building, and if you are not able to keep the prism target on the top of the building, then we can use this remote elevation measurement board within the total station. So you can just see here this configuration. This is your instrument station, and this is your target station, and this is your target whose height you have to find now. So the height of this location has to be found out, but what happened, you cannot go to the top and keep the prism target over there. So there is some problem in the field. In that case, how we can do the measurements? That measurements can be done by using an option called remote elevation measurements. So for this, you are measuring two angles. One is the angle theta Z1. As I told that in total station, the vertical zero is in the top. So from here only you are measuring the angles. So that is theta Z1, and then the Z1 and Z2 are the zenith angles, and S is the slope distance, and HT, that height, this is the height which we wanted to calculate now. If you see here, now initially what you have to do means set up the instrument, the total station here, and do the centering and do the leveling and focus. Now keep your prism target at the below of the object for which you wanted to find the height now. So now set the prism at a particular convenient height and note down the prism height, and bisect the focus your the prism from your instrument station and note down the angles. That angle is called Z theta 1, and the distance between the prism top and the instrument station, that is called S. So based on, now you got these two measurements. Next one is you will be sighting the your object. You will be sighting this object here, this one. So whose height has to be determined. Now you will be again measuring the angle, zenith angle, that is theta Z2, and you will be calculating the distance, slope distance S1 between the instrument station and the object target, your target. Now based on these measurements, you have S1 and you have S2 and you have theta Z1 and you have theta Z2. So we can easily calculate the height of the object from the base. So for the first measurement, the AB, the distance between the point A and the point B, is equal to S into cos 90 minus Z theta 1. S into cos 90 minus Z theta 1. That is equal to S into sin Z sin theta Z1. Similarly, for the second measurements, AB is the horizontal distance. AB is constant. AB is the horizontal distance. That is equal to S dash into cos of 90 minus Z theta 2. That is equal to S dash 1 S dash into sine of Z theta Z2. So S dash is equal to, we can write this one, the sine S of sine theta Z1 divided by sine of theta Z2. Based on this figure, we can also write this one, H2 as follows, S dash into sine of 90 minus theta Z2 minus H star. So H2 can be easily calculated. I think you can refer my lecture hand notes where I have given these formulas. So based on this, and you can calculate the H2 also. So once you know H2, and H1 is already known. H1 is the height of the prism, which we have to feed when we are measuring. In any total session surveying, we have to feed the height of the prism. That can be easily noted down in the field, and that has to be incorporated in any calculations. So once you know the H1 is already known. Once you know the H2, so we can calculate the height of the target very easily as given here. So I request you to refer my lecture hand notes for these formulas detailedly. So the next is remote distance measurement. Yeah, sorry. So I will go back here in the calculation of remote elevation objects. So this method also can be used, or this mode in the total session can be used to find the height of each floor of a multi-story building. Suppose if you want to find the height of the multi-story 30th floor building, and if you are not able to go to the 30th floor, so this measurement, mode, remote elevation measurement mode can be utilized. And if you want to find the height of each floor, the same method approach can be utilized. Next is the remote distance measurement. So these are the two different functionalities or the modes available in a typical total station. So remote distance measurements. So here the process of finding the distance between 2 points, say A and B, which are not intervisible from each other, from the new instrument station, is called the remote distance measurement, RDM. You just see here in this figure. So this is the point A and the point B. You wanted to find the distance between this point and this point, and which has an obstruction. Let us say here the obstruction is a group of trees. Actually here it is shown one tree. Let us assume that you have a group of trees. So based on this, from point A, B is not visible and vice versa. So using the distance, remote distance measurement mode in the total station, we can easily find the distance between point A and B. So for this, what you have to do means, you have to consider the instrument station at X, which is from where you can see point A as well as point B. This is the criteria. Once you have set up the instrument at point X, then we have to measure the horizontal distances between the instrument station X and the instrument station A. Similarly, and the instrument station B and the instrument station X and the another station B. So once you know the distance between A and station X, and similarly B and station X, the station X is here, the instrument station. So, and based on the angles, we can easily calculate the distance between point A and B. So here I have given the three figures. One is the location of the instrument and the station points, and second is the plan view of the instrument station and the target point. So this is the plan view of the instrument station and the target points. This is your instrument station, this is A and this B. You need HAB. And so for this, and then third one is the side view of the instrument station and the target point A. Your instrument station and the target point A. Normally it involves it involves the measurement of the horizontal angle between station A and B, as well as the zenith angle and the horizontal angle between the instrument station and target A and B separately. So by using simple trigonometry, we can easily calculate the distance between point A and point B. So here you can see here this HAX is equal to the S1 into cos U1. So S1 is the slope distance and the cos 1 is the cos U1 is the zenith angle between the instrument station and the target A. Similarly, you can get the H2. So knowing the H1 and H2, that is HAX and HBX, by using cosine rule, we can easily calculate the HAB, that is the distance between point A and B. This is called as remote distance measurement mode using a total station. So in remote distance measurements, there are two different methods are available. One is continuous measurements and the radial measurements. It's all depend upon the kind of situation we are encountering. So accordingly you can choose the radial option or the continuous option. So I have given the illustrations for both the modes, remote distance measurement in radial as well as the continuous. The first one shows the remote distance measurements in continuous mode. So here the distance can be obtained like AB, BC, segment wise. Suppose if you have a road network of 20-30 kilometers or 100 kilometers, so if you want to measure the distance between each segment, continuously you can measure the distance between the segments. That is called continuous mode. Next one is radial mode. Let us say now this is your instrument station and you have different station points A, B, C, D and D. So in the radial mode option you can easily find the distance between A, B, AC, AD, AE, AF like this. So the procedure is same, only thing is the selection of operation varies. So you have to, if you want to get the continuous distance, you have to press the continuous mode, and if you want only the radial distance, you can find the, you can select the radial option in the total station. So these are the two general remote measurements which are possible in any total station. That is the remote elevation measurement and remote distance measurements. Next is, so far we have discussed about the total station working principles and what are the different temporary adjustments you have to do, what you can measure with the total stations, as well as we have discussed about the different measurement modes available in the total station. Next important thing is calibration checks on the total stations. It is very important. So you want to know when you are purchasing a total stations, you might be the vendor might have told you that okay, it will give you the horizontal accuracy plus or minus 3 seconds. Vertical accuracy means the vertical angle accuracy is like this, and the distance measurement is within 1 centimeter or 2 centimeter. Like this, they might have given you the calibration your instrument accuracies. So now how can you say whether the instrument is working fine? So we need to do some calibrations. So that's what I am going to discuss now. The following method can be used to check and verify the vertical and horizontal angles, whether they are within the manufacturer specification. This is a very simple way to check whether your instruments are within the manufacturer specifications. Simple thing is, set up the total station and the target at least 100 meters between apart each other. Once you have done, then aim in a flat ground. Let us assume that in a flat ground also. Aim accurately to your fixed target. So now you have to bisect your target or allow the instrument to auto lock to the prism. Then note down the vertical and horizontal angles. So we have noted down what is the vertical angle and horizontal angle between the instrument station and the target station. Now we have to change the face of the instrument. Normally the people who have studied surveying now, you might be knowing the face left and face right measurements. That means you will be rotating the instrument face, the telescope face vertically 180 degree as well as horizontally 180 degrees. So you have to do that, and again in that process again you will come back to the same target only. The target will be bisected. So and then note down the angles, vertical angles and horizontal angles, and call it as phase 2 angles. Now we have two angles, one is phase 1 angles and another one is phase 2 angles from the same instrumentation to the same target. Now we have all the values, simple mathematics using a simple basic principles. This criteria should be satisfied. The sum of the vertical angles should be 360 degrees and the difference between the two horizontal angles should be 180 degrees. If it is exactly same means your instruments are working within the manufacturer specifications. If it is not means it is out of calibration. So one has to calibrate the instrument. Otherwise all your angle measurements will go wrong as well as the distance measurements. I will illustrate this with a simple example. So you can just see here the following are the observations made by a total station at the same target, phase 1 and phase 2. The first observation from your instrument station is called the phase 1, that is F1 measurements. Horizontal angle is this much and the vertical angle is this much. Now you rotate the instrument horizontally 180 degrees and then vertically 180 degrees. And then again the instrument will orient towards the target station only. Now note down the angles, horizontal angle and vertical angles. These angles are called F2, that is the phase 2 angles. Now as I told you have to check whether these based on these measurements the criteria are satisfied or not. Sum of the vertical angles should be 360 degree and difference of the horizontal angle should be 180 degrees. We have to check. So let us say that if you are purchasing the instrument, when you purchase the instrument, the manufacturer says that all our accuracies, the angle accuracies is up to plus or minus 3 degrees, means 3 seconds means we can check whether the your obtained angles are within that 3 seconds or not. Now based on these calculations, just see here the sum of the angles when you do, so you are getting 6 seconds. So there are two angles are two observations are there. So that means divide by 2. So you will be getting 3 arc seconds for vertical angles. As I told that, now let us assume that the instrument accuracy is plus or minus 3 seconds when you purchase. That means the vertical angle is within the calibration range. Now similarly we have to do for the horizontal angle. Here you have the F1 angle and F2 angle. The difference between these two angles should be 180 degrees. And based on these measurements, your 180 degree, the difference is comes to be 21 seconds. So now divide by 2 observations, again it comes to be 11 arc seconds for horizontal angle. So the 11 arc second is way far away, means high than the your instrument specifications. In your instrument specification is 3 seconds. So now we can say that your instrument is 8 seconds beyond the higher than the calibrated range. So that means all your horizontal angles will have an error of 11 arc seconds. So this has to be reduced, or this has to be neglected before taking into observation calculations. So this is how we have to calibrate the angle measurements. The next one is, so here I have told about the calibration of the horizontal and vertical angles. So my another simple question is how to calibrate the distance measurements. So how you are going to say that your distance measurement from the instrument is correct? The simple solution is, if you have two different benchmarks, so you can calculate the distance between the benchmarks whose distance is already known, calculated by earlier measurements. Then you can compare your observations and the difference will tell whether the instrument is within the calibration range or not. Otherwise you have to set up the instrument in a flat terrain, exactly flat terrain. Then measure the distance between these 2 points using the total stations. For the same points, measure the distance using the tapes. Preferably the distance between your target station and the instrument station should be 1 tape length, preferably 30 meters or 50 meters. So note down that distance obtained from the tape and note down the distance obtained from the total station measurements. If the difference is within the OEM, that means the original instrument manufacturer specifications, then you can say that the distance measurements are under control, or if it is not, then that has to be calibrated properly. So this is how you have to calculate, or you have to calibrate the instruments. So calibration is very important thing before making measurements using total stations. Not only total stations, any other high-end instruments. So with this I am concluding the today's lecture on overview of total stations. So now the session is open for questions. Please ask me questions. So DGI Subhash Ranjan Banerjee. So they have asked a question: how can we use robotic total station? Yeah, robotic station, total station is a one-man equipment. So in a normal total station, there will be two operators. One has to in the instrument station, one has to at the target station. So wherever you want to mark the locations, you have to keep the prism over that location exactly. So the person who is at the instrument station, so he will be focusing the target, and then he will be noting down the readings. So one person should be there and one person should hold the target. So in the robotic total sessions, what happens? You will be keeping the instrument at a particular location, convenient location, from where you can see all the targets, target locations. Now you go to one particular target location. Once you fix the target prism there, then from there itself there will be a rugged controller will be there. So from there, at the target location itself, one can give the command to the total stations. Then the total station will rotate and it will focus and bisect the your target. It will be aligning with the target. Then based on that, once it is locked with the reflector prism or the target, then automatically then it can calculate the distance and angles and everything. So it is a one-man instrument. There will be a radio link between your instrument and the controller, the target station. So based on that, we can operate the instrument from the target station itself. So essentially, you have to hold the target, and from there itself we can command the instrument. So another person have asked me the cost of the robotic total station. So the cost of the robotic total station is approximately 1.5 crores. So for commercial purpose, so normally you can for educational purpose we can get for 80 lakhs, 90 lakhs, depend upon the manufacturer, all these things. One person have asked me, Oxford College, I think, what is arc second? Yeah, arc second. So normally in a circle, it is you have 360 degrees, and each degree will be 1 degree. Well, 60 minutes will be representing 1 degree, and then similarly the 60 arc seconds will represent 1 degree of arc. This is not, don't confuse with your minutes and seconds for the time measurements. This is 1 arc second, that is 60 arc seconds will represent 1 arc minute, and 60 arc minutes will represent 1 degree. So 360 degrees will form a circle. It is a polar coordinates. I will answer the another question. What is the working principles of a total station? Yeah, the working principle of the total station is, it is a simple concept, that Doppler velocity principle. So you know the time taken by the v is equal, velocity is equal to distance by time. So now velocity is known here because the electromagnetic wave travels in the speed of the light. That is 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second, and time, we can also calculate the distance for that electromagnetic wave to take from the transmitter to the target and coming back to the transmitter. That is two-way travel time. T is known. So velocity into time divided by 2, that is two-way travel time, you will get the distance. This is the working principle. And the distance measurements here can be made by two different approaches, either the pulse approach or the phase-based difference. Normally, almost all the nowadays currently existing total station uses the modulated infrared waves. Will the measurement be affected by the local attraction? Yeah. So one student have asked me, will the measurements be affected by local attractions? Yes, of course. Sometimes it's all depend upon what kind of meridian you are using. Suppose if you want to, always the total station also will have a compass. So that compass is also sensitive to the local magnetic field. Suppose if there is a local magnetic field is there, then the direction shown by the compass fitted in the total station will also deviate from the actual magnetic north and south. It can happen. But to avoid that, if we have the ground control points based on the previous survey or the benchmark points, so those coordinates can be assigned to the instrument station. Once that is done, then all the measurements will be with respect to that coordinate system. So then that problem can be eliminated easily. If you are using your own coordinate system, local coordinate system, then the problem of magnetic field disturbances will be there, provided if there is any magnetic disturbances in the surveying area. 1 minute, someone asked me, please show me the robotic total station slide. So this is the robotic total station. It looks like a normal total station only. So the only thing is there will be if you see here, this is radio antenna. So normally this instrument and your this is your prism pole. So this is your reflector. So this both instrument can be connected through radio signals. So this is the controller. So suppose if I am keeping the instrument here and this is my controller. So from using this controller, I can rotate, I can control the movement of the total station. So I can rotate such that the total station comes into in line with the prism. So once both are in contact, once both are in the same line of sight, then you can note down what you can press the button to calculate the angles, vertical angles as well as the horizontal angles, and slope distance can be calculated. So ideally only one person is sufficient where at the target point. So there is no need of one person to operate. In a normal total station, one person has to rotate the total stations here manually, and then they have to sight the target. So from using this controller, they cannot control the total station. So for this you need a radio link between the total station and the target, as well as there are many electronic components which will make the total station rotate automatically. So many other electronic components are required to make it a robotic one. So I think I have answered all the questions which have been raised here. If there is no more questions, then I will conclude today's session, and day after tomorrow I will be discussing on overview of GPS, Global Positioning Systems. So it will be completely 2-hour lecture where I will be discussing about the basics of GPS, how it measures the distance between the satellite and the your receiver station, how you can calculate the coordinates, all these things. But different applications of GPS, all these things will be discussed in the day after tomorrow's lecture. So if you have any questions, please ask me. So yeah, so I think one student they have asked, how can we find out the given area by using a total station? As I told that total station also will contain many other components. So once you are pressing the or clicking the option traversing, so that there will be an option called traverse. So automatically in a traverse, what you will do, you will be measuring the backside, foresight similarly, and you will measure all the details. So using the traverse option, so you can note down the different stations. So once you are coming back to the same station, the starting station itself, the traverse will be closed. So once it is properly closed, so the internal components will enable you to calculate the what you can say the total area also. Normally the total station will contain microprocessor, electronic data collector, and the storage systems. These microprocessors, all the calculation algorithms will be fed into this already. So based upon the necessary data and depend upon the mode which you are selecting, it all will be calculating. The same principles, the same calculations, but it all already programmed into the microprocessor. So if you have the relevant measurements, you can easily calculate. As I told that the remote elevation distance, the remote elevation measurement, remote distance measurements. So you have to take the proper measurements. You have to measure the slope angle, slope distance, and to the prism, and you have to measure the slope distance to the target. In that process, you will be measuring the zenith angle 1 and zenith angle 2. Once you have all these measurements, and if you are in the remote elevation measurement mode, automatically the microprocessor will enable that particular algorithm, and it will calculate the height of the object. So that is why it is also a kind of a computing system inside the total station. So one asked SCEKL, I think from Kerala, what is the maximum distance that can be measured with the total stations? It varies from instrument to instrument. So normally, if you are using the prism as the target, so you can, and if you have a proper line of sight between your instrument station and the target station, it can go up to 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers. Normal. There are instruments with 7 kilometer range also, provided that both the stations should be intervisible. And sometimes if you are not able to keep the prism there on the particular target, so you can use the target itself, the surface of the target itself as a reflector. In that case, that is called as reflectorless mode. In that case, the distance between the distance measurement will be restricted to 1 kilometer, 800 meters, like this. Again, that also depend upon the percentage of reflectance of the reflective nature of the surface. Mainly, the surface absorbs most of the energy, then the distance will be reduced. If the surface is more reflective, then you can achieve 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers. That is the typical distance you can. Yeah, there are two modes of measurements. One is reflector mode and reflectorless mode. In reflector mode, your prism will act as a reflector. In reflectorless mode, your surface. Suppose if you want to measure the distance between two buildings, you kept the total station at one building and the other building's wall will act as the reflective surface. In that case, the distance measurement will be restricted to 1 kilometer or 1.5 kilometers. So I have also given some exercises, so I request you to practice that, and if you have any doubts we can discuss. Yeah. So another question asked is, what are the errors in total station survey? So obviously I told that errors in the total station surveys will be due to the instrumental errors or due to the correct field procedures. Instrumental errors is mainly due to the uncalibration of the instrument components. If the components are not calibrated properly, that also will lead to errors. And your correct field procedures. Instead, if you are not leveling, centering it properly and focusing properly, obviously that also will lead to errors. And another thing is atmospheric factors. Sometimes if it is rain happens, sometimes what happens due to rain and other noisy, the dusty areas or foggy areas, that also will affect the electromagnetic signals travel path. So that also can cause some errors, but that can be avoided by choosing an appropriate time for surveying. So one has to be careful in utilizing the total stations by checking the instruments calibration before starting the measurements. That is the foremost thing. And then you should follow the good practices in the field.